Welcome, Kings, to the NFL Week 4 Market Outlook. We didn't do our NFL Sunday Tilt this past week, so we want to recap what our picks were for Week 3, how we performed, and do a little bit of a rehash of what we saw from Week 3, and also introduce a few of our drive quality scores. Then we'll look at the consensus market rankings, see how adjustments have been made following Week 3, and then we'll get into the Week 4 slate. Our Week 3 Circa picks, we went 3-2. Last week we went 3-2. We opened with 4-1. So now we're sitting at 10-5 through 3 weeks. Not bad. But I was left with a little bit of a bad taste because we were 3-1. Yeah. Going into that Sunday night game. We had the Niners versus the Broncos, and the Niners were winning the entire game. And then Russell Wilson and Denver put together one last final drive. But it was an ugly game. So we had the Falcons, which was a winner. We had the Bills, which was a loser. We had the Lions at +6. They were winning pretty much the whole game until the fourth quarter. Really unwound. So our drive quality score does show the Vikings justifiably winning that game by a full touchdown. So something that we want to keep in mind moving forward.
Goes to show the time weighted average, right? That the Lions were comfortably winning the game. That doesn't necessarily mean that we should be discounting the Vikings fourth quarter. Like, they earned those points. And those fourth quarter points count just as much as the first, second, and third quarter points, even if the Lions were winning for most of them.
When we were doing our live stream, live betting the games, we were trying to source some Vikings exposure late in that fourth quarter, because that's already been a criticism, something that a lot of people were worried about, is can they close games? We know they can come back and put in some backdoor covers, but can they then close it out? Do they have the maturity to do that? Do they have the talent and the execution to do that? We had Rams. That was a nice one. Ended up being a little bit closer than we would have wanted for comfort. But our drive quality score here, 26-14, so justifiably covering it. The Rams were clearly the better team. And then our last pick was the Niners. One of the things that I do want to be careful about around the narrative around the Niners moving forward is I feel like there's a lot of people now, let's upgrade the Niners because they have Jimmy G. And then, I forgot, Jimmy G sucks.
Yeah, people have also seemed to forget that Jimmy G does this every 2 or 3 games, right? This is perfectly in the range of outcomes. That doesn't mean that this is going to be his new norm and this is going to be his new average. No, he's always been this way. And he's going to fall somewhere along the distribution, and this one happens to be on the left tail.
This isn't a new normal. This is the old normal.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we got bad Jimmy G. Still early in the campaign. These are the types of things that can happen with him. And there were certainly other mistakes throughout that game where the Niners shot themselves in their own foot. It wasn't certainly just falling all on Jimmy G's shoulders. But let's grade our handicaps here. So starting at the top, Falcons. So we had them at the +1. Came close in the end with a final drive by the Seahawks. But I think the Falcons are as good as we thought they were.
Yeah, their offense is legitimately good. They're like second or third in success rate on early downs. They're third in success rate and second in early down success rate. They have a legitimate offense. I don't know how good Arthur Smith is as a coach, but he's a brilliant play designer. Things are getting open. Like, they have weapons. Drake London's good. Kyle Pitts is good. Mariota's ability to run the ball opens up just a whole new dimension for the offense.
One of the things that I'm really enjoying so far through 3 weeks of football is so many of our off-season evaluations and things that we were talking about in our preseason previews are really coming to fruition. And there's a lot of kind of commentators out there now, even on the Raiders, like scratching their heads. Oh man, like we knew that they were going to regress, but man, they look really bad. Oh man, the Falcons, they got some weapons here. They could potentially be a pretty explosive team. This was all there. So it's really good to see a lot of that off-season due diligence paying off, helping our bankrolls, putting us in a strong position here. So I would grade this pick, the Falcons, as like a B+. One, because it was still a little bit coin flippy in the end. Time weighted average margin, 1 point. The time weighted average win probability, 52%. Our adjusted drive quality score, winning by less than a point. And it really did come down to the final drive by the Seahawks. Ended up not scoring, but they easily could have because the Falcons' defense is trash.
We also like to talk about two-sided bets here. So I think we know the Falcons side. I think we just maybe a little bit underestimated the Seahawks. Like, they're a disaster, and Atlanta's just going to roll over them. But I don't think that part of it take a break.
All right, I want to hear yours on Buffalo. So we really liked Bills. I was rewatching our game trade live stream to see how we were assessing the game as it was going on. And the conviction and the love for the Bills to roll in that game only was picking up strength as that game was going on.
Yeah.
And then kind of just fell on their faces.
Yeah, it's somewhere it's going to be in a B-. Every time red zone panned to that game, it was another Bill being carted off with an injury or being helped off the field. Number one, we didn't have, when we made the Circa pick, we didn't have information about the Bills secondary.
Yes. In fact, one of the headline images I had put together was highlighting the Bills and how we thought the Bills were likely going to probably crush the Dolphins. But yeah, that was way before a lot of all that news started to really pick up.
That's an important part in grading this handicap. But also, even still, the Dolphins, 21 points by our drive quarterback. It's not like they lit the world on fire. It was just that the Bills offense didn't really move the ball as well as we thought they would. The Bills did a good job marching 5 yards at a time, but that's not the offense they're trying to run. They're trying to have an explosive offense, hitting Diggs and Davis deep. I still like the bet, but I think there were better options. Yeah.
One of the variables that did come out that really impacted the game, which I feel like we didn't really discuss. We knew about it, but never really brought attention to it, was the weather. Early in September, in Miami, in the sun, like that could just introduce additional uncertainty that could mitigate some of your conviction.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably would have added even more ammunition to be like, we like the Bills, we're comfortable with the 6, we know it's a lot, but where is there other opportunity in the slate? And where that other opportunity potentially could have been is we didn't make the Ravens a pick, but you really like the Ravens. You talked about the Ravens. You liked Ravens alt line and a couple other derivative bets in that game, all of which ended up cashing. That was one that we ultimately left off the board because there was some fishy line movement. We knew that there was like some generally sharper, smart money taking the other side of the bet. But nonetheless, we think that we're just as sharp or just as smart as anyone else out there, so we can't discount our own handicaps. And I think that was something that you were even talking about. I don't care what anyone else really thinks.
Yeah.
I like the Ravens, especially at 2.5.
I'm like, the Ravens have got to be a pick here. Like, they were my highest conviction play of the weekend. The reverse line movement of anything was signal to buy. Like, I knew where the Patriots love was coming from, and it was a fundamental difference that I disagreed with. Oh, the Ravens are like too reliant on explosive plays. Like the Patriots, the Belichick defensive wizardry is gonna step up here. No, I'm fading those angles. Right, and it was a real missed opportunity.
One of the things I really like that you called out, though, was when we were on the live stream, live betting the game, we were talking about how the game was closer than the final score because the Patriots are moving the ball. And if Mac Jones doesn't throw a few interceptions, then this could be like much closer. But then you called me out.
Yeah.
And totally justifiably, which is that was part of the handicap.
Yeah.
Was that Mac Jones was going to make those mistakes. And that was one of the reasons why you were comfortable with the Ravens. And then that played out. You can't say if he didn't do that. Well, I was pricing that in. That was part of what I wanted to see.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The Ravens' aggression is exactly what would cost Mac Jones trouble without a coaching staff. Like, that was the handicap.
Lions. I'll give Lions an A-. One of the things that gave us more conviction was our drive quality model was telling us that the Lions were number 1 offense in the league and that there was a lot of love out there for the Lions. And I think if you just took a market perspective, you might see maybe there's too much love for the Lions. Lions still aren't necessarily a good team, and maybe this is something that we want to avoid. But at the 6, they played the Vikings tough last year, and seeing that from our models, which I don't think even the people that love the Lions weren't pricing them as having the number 1 offense. And a lot of that came and played itself out on the field, especially over the first 3.5 quarters. We were up by 2 touchdowns for a lot of that game. Time-weighted average margin, almost a full touchdown. Time-weighted win probability, almost 65%. So in control, but just simply didn't have the maturity to close that game.
I'm with you there, only because I'm like happy we really trusted the numbers here. Right? That didn't feel good. It didn't feel good back in the Lions. No, this offense is legit.
And then we got Rams. I would give Rams another A-. This was another line that was moving against our handicap. It was like 5, then 4.5, then 4, 3. But even on our Sunday night tilt last week, we were betting the Rams right off the bat. It seemed like a screaming buy. I wish I would have seen the Rams maybe execute a little bit better than they ultimately did. But I think this was another strong two-sided handicap in that the Rams are better than we think that maybe the market's pricing. And maybe at this stage, at least, the Cardinals are still worse than the market is pricing. And our drive quality here has the Rams still winning the game comfortably, 26-14.
Yeah, two-sided handicap is precisely why I give this one an A. I think it played out almost exactly as we anticipated. This is not a 3.5 point spread separating these two teams. Rams are a lot better than their week 1 showing against the Bills. They're still a solid team. Are they the same Super Bowl team? Probably not. But they're still really good, and the Cardinals defense is just hapless, and like their offense without Hopkins and their weapons is really nothing special.
I love that we avoided Eagles-Washington.
Yep.
That was the game that we talked about last week. Didn't have really a super strong handicap on it.
Yeah.
You might be tempted by the Washington plus 6.5 at home. Division game. Wanting to fade a little bit of the extreme hype on the Eagles.
Yeah.
But that was a nice layoff. And then that Niners-Broncos game, that was another really ugly one. Again, certainly within the broader potential outcomes that you should be expecting by betting on Jimmy G and the 49ers. But I would say being on the road, take him as the favorite. We bet the Niners at the plus 1.5 early on the Sunday night tilt last week, which that did cash. But taking at the minus 1.5 for Circa, I'm going to say C+.
C+?
I don't think it wasn't a great pick.
I'm actually higher on this one. I think it's a BB+, only because I think we nailed the Broncos. They're still being priced as like an off-season team, but they really have shown nothing. Man, I think like the Niners, like we got to recognize that like these Garoppolo stinkers are built in, and like I knew it was a possibility, but I still think the Niners like they were terrible. There's nothing like more to say on that, but I think the fundamental process behind it was perfectly sound. Although I do recognize like I also was definitely selling the Broncos defense. Perhaps they're better than I thought. In which case, maybe it was a little bit worse of a grade. But I actually think the process was perfectly sound here.
Let's look at the market power rankings. Have you looked at this yet?
No.
In detail, okay. Who do you think is the worst team right now?
The worst team in the NFL.
According to market perception.
Bears. Not a 2-1. Jets.
Downgraded 4 spots. I'm not taking anything away from the Jets.
Well, I'm ready to back him against the Steelers. I'm excited.
I think that this is really valuable when you're looking at these consensus market power rankings, which is a model that equal weights the power rankings from ESPN, PFF, 538, Football Outsiders, and InPredict. And we got Bills still at number 1, even after the loss. In fact, even a 2-spot upgrade, which is, we shouldn't think that the market has a more negative view of the Bills. I think everyone realizes, man, this team is beat up. They play still pretty well, and it was just a head scratcher of a loss. They put up like 90 offensive plays. They probably should have won the game. Our drive quality says they should have won the game, and the market's not downgrading them accordingly.
Yeah. What's surprising here is I would think that the market would fill in the gap by saying, oh, the Dolphins have gotten a lot better. And that's what's a little surprising to me, is that actually there's been no change.
Yeah, those two things actually match up well in the sense of most people are coming away from that game saying Bills should have won. Yeah, the Bengals were 4th last week, so still very elevated, even coming off 2 ugly games. Gonna have to do some reverse attribution analysis here. Now I want to continue to update and improve this chart so it has more detail around what's driving some of this. How are the changes being made across these inputs? Seeing who's much higher than others. I also want to introduce like a standard deviation factor to really see how across our different inputs, is there broad, consistent consensus views on these teams, or is there an average, but that average is built and inputted through a bunch of volatile numbers, in fact, and there's actually not a lot of agreement across the board on it.
And there's also a weird interplay of models that are strictly ELO based and prior based, which just adds a little bit of weird numbers early in the season.
So we got Bills, Bucs, Packers, Eagles, Chiefs in the top 5, and then we got Ravens, Rams, Bengals, Niners, still a top 10 team. and then the Dolphins round out that top 10. Then, as Arjun pointed out, Chargers still do seem very high. They fell 4 spots, but are still at 11.
Yeah.
Brown seems way too high. At 12,
Really?
moved up 10. Yes.
I don't think
12? 12.
I don't think so. Look at the teams right below them. Okay. Jaguars, I agree with. What other teams are you putting ahead of the Browns? Just from 13, 14, 15, 16.
These, I disagree with a lot of these.
That's what I'm saying.
Specifically,
Like, I
the
think,
Broncos, Raiders.
I think in our head, what constitutes a top 15 team from the previous 5 years is not true of this year. There's a ton of uncertainty. I think part of it has to do with like quarterback play, and that there are fewer good quarterbacks, and like we're really seeing the decline of Brady and Rodgers before our very eyes.
Yeah.
And also, like, the game is changing a little bit. But I was thinking about over the weekend, just perhaps we're cycling through passing back to rushing a bit this season. This is the beauty of football. The things we thought were true and definitively true 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year, are extremely fluid and can really change. And I think we like really need to build in a level of uncertainty of, okay, what worked in 2020, and like we thought we were entering this great elite quarterbacks are all that matters. I think there's starting to be the first sign of a hole in that argument. And that like the teams and the style of the Browns, this is why I think it ties into the Browns, which is like their style of football might be perfect for 2022. Of just teams are, it's lower scoring, but protect the ball, run the ball effectively. And that's a recipe for success.
I do think over the course of time, scoring's going to go up, not just because of like defensive adjustments, but because of refs and just the broader underlying league pressure to make maybe some of these games higher scoring. These are just the kind of like some of the practical considerations of the NFL being a business. And 13 to 10 games are not exciting. Doesn't drive ratings. But going back to the Browns, who have the Browns played? 3 of probably some of the worst teams in the league.
Steelers, Jets, Panthers. Yeah.
So I don't know that there's like a ton to take away from that. And they didn't blow any of those teams out. They didn't even win convincingly versus any of them.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a point I'm not taking. I just like, I don't see the fact that the Raiders are 15th to me is crazy.
That's why I just love keep selling the Raiders.
I know.
And the fact that even you were willing to potentially lean into them last week is suggestive that there's people out there still trying to buy the dip on the Raiders, when I think the Raiders are legitimately probably a bottom 6 team.
Yeah, they are.
Especially if they keep getting injured. Panthers, another team, really high.
Yeah.
Really
This, like, you see a major discrepancy. Are they 30th in PFF? PFF's the third column.
PFF is the outlier here, whereas mostly everyone else has them as that middle of the road team.
Here's where I think their ranking comes from. Their defense has been amazing. And if you're...
That's how they started off last season, too.
Yeah. And like even last year, they didn't get a lot of turnovers, but like they're going to be top 10 in yards per play allowed as they were last year. The defense is legitimately really good, but I think that actually helps explain why they're 18th. Because if you're like equal weighting offense and defense, then you might end up with an 18th because their offense might be 29th. Their defense is 7th or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Honestly, the teams that are too low to me are the Falcons and Lions.
I'm conflicted with the Falcons as the market starts to buy into the Falcons.
I just want to articulate our offseason take here, which is like no shot for upside, but real shot at 6 wins.
Oh, yeah.
That was the take.
There's no really shit bucket teams like there has been the last couple of years where there's like 2-3 teams, like you can't bet on them. They're just going to put in a stinker almost week in and week out, totally incompetent. And then usually even those incompetent teams get beat up and then they become even worse.
Yeah.
And then you got like Glennon at quarterback, those types of Giants teams that just look absolutely putrid. But I don't think, there's not a lot of good teams either though. Yeah. And like everyone's just kind of middle of the pack. No one's really surprised into the upside meaningfully. No one's really surprised into the downside meaningfully. And that's a lot of parity this year and can make for a lot of really good betting opportunities.
There are so many of these middling teams, and it's going to be hard to make a really bullish case unless something really changes for any of these, even from the Niners downward. It's an important inflection point to say the good teams, we should have conviction that they're a lot better than the average ones. And that matters a lot more in a year like this because the Broncos could be 7-4 and the market can react a certain way. Like that 7-4 record can be extremely misleading because the market, if its inputs are wins and losses, or even like the same analytical stuff that we all cite, if that's just being propped up by easy matchups, like by the best teams, they're gonna be the exceptions to the rule of this parity in the NFL.
Okay, let's go into week 4. Start at Thursday. Dolphins, Bengals. This was like 4.5. Moved down to 4. Now sitting at 3.5. The narrative around this game is the Dolphins coming off a total grinder versus the Bills, and then Tua's status, I think, is still up in the air. I'm seeing a lot of Bengals love out there, despite the line actually moving against that. What are you seeing, and how do you see this game?
It really all depends on Tua, I think.
Does it?
Yeah, I think we even talked about this on the live stream. I think there's a noticeable difference between Teddy Bridgewater and Tua, which is that this offense is based off timing and accuracy leading to yards after the catch, and I don't think Bridgewater is as decisive in his decisions, which throws off the entire rhythm of the offense.
Plus a short week of prep for a potential new quarterback.
And then it's like short week of prep. Historically, Thursday night, first-year coaches on Thursday Night Football are a disaster. The blanket Zach Taylor, I think that's mitigated on the coaching front. Look, I think 3.5 is probably about right, but I still, just because of the way the Bengals are built, and I don't think the Dolphins have the secondary to stop the Bengals, their alt line is still going to be attractive to me, only because they have such a propensity to generate explosive plays, and we haven't even seen Jamar Chase break off big plays, and like those are going to come, and I don't think the Dolphins have the talent to stop him. And kudos to Sauce Gardner last week for shutting down Jamar Chase. I don't think the Dolphins can do the same thing.
I don't think the Bengals were nearly as explosive as they probably should have been, or as projected versus the Jets.
Yeah.
I know you were really disappointed that over the last 18 minutes of that game basically went scoreless.
That was a tough beat for sure. The Bengals did not feel the need to push the needle. They stopped playing after the first half. Burrow had 200 yards in the first half, but they only had 150 yards in total offense in the second half, and like 90 passing yards or something like that.
Dolphins, everyone's been seduced by that Ravens performance, which again was particularly like that fourth quarter. But until that point, they had still only scored 14. They didn't do anything versus Patriots, and they didn't really do anything versus depleted Bills defense.
That's kind of why I almost wanted the market to overreact to their win against the Bills, but they didn't.
Yeah,
the power rankings didn't move.
I think this Bengals are a pass for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think you bet 3.5 here if they're winning on the backs of big plays.
So leaning into Bengals alt line.
Yeah, leaning into the Bengals alt line. That's the only play here.
Vikings at Saints, or in London. Vikings Saints. Vikings minus 2.5 currently. I think this was 3.5, maybe even 4. Come down. Again, in London, such a crazy X factor that could be really difficult to handicap how these teams will necessarily adjust to it. Saints are banged up. The Saints offense had 1 or 2 explosive plays versus the Panthers last week, but otherwise couldn't do anything coming off the back of not doing anything versus the Bucs.
I thought I liked the Vikings. I don't like between the London element. This just feels like a real fluky game. I can't back either side here.
I think that reflects the broader betting community as well. But I think there was this overshoot of elevated expectations for the Vikings coming off that game versus the Packers, where they still only scored like
23 points.
20 points, yeah. And then a stinker versus the Eagles, and then in a game where they were getting beat by double digits by the Lions for most of that game.
Yeah, we've learned a lot about a bunch of teams through 3 weeks. These are not 2 of them. I think we need more time to see what these teams are.
Titans at Colts. Titans plus 3.5. The Colts look miserable, even though they beat the Chiefs. I'm certainly not changing my evaluation of them. They were gifted a touchdown right off the bat to start that game.
That changes the entire course of the game. When you have a fluke touchdown like that, it just like alters it. It throws it into a strange game script. It's not the same as like a fumble in the second quarter.
And so what did you see from the Titans in the Raiders? I know because obviously you didn't even want to touch Titans.
Yeah.
The offense was clicking. They did it even beyond the scripted plays. Now it trailed off near the end of the game, but it was beyond the scripted plays at least.
I'm willing to accept that the Titans are going to be fine. I don't think they're going to be great. But they're not a bottom 5 offense. Like they get Traylon Burks going. They run with Henry. Like Tannehill's still somewhat of the quarterback he was, running somewhat of the same offense that was like generally successful. I think it's a major step back from what they were.
Yes.
But I don't think it's this bottom 5 offense that I thought was possible.
I don't want you to actually back off too strongly.
I'm not backing off. Okay, so I should clarify. I'm not backing off.
Because that's versus the Raiders still.
I'm not backing off too strong. I've seen the case for they can be competent.
So does 3.5 is 3.5 versus Colts cracked here?
No. I think we have our off-season thesis right on both of these teams, but I don't think we know the extent of it yet.
This is another one where a lot of the market I feel like is, man, the Colts look bad. Maybe Wentz wasn't the problem. Man, Matt Ryan looks like Wentz 2.0. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bears at the Giants. This isn't even uglier. Bears +3, +100 currently. I can't imagine touching this game. Bad team versus bad team. Fluke shit can happen, and you just end up losing because someone makes its bonehead display. I could certainly see the Giants are in command, up by 4, fumble sack. Bears
exactly. Where's the fumble happening? Where's the Jones fumble happening? And where's the Fields interception happening? That's what's happening like this.
Okay, so Bills on the road, -3 versus the Ravens. I saw it was 3.5. I think it was 4.5 maybe to open. You love the Bills, I know, but you also like the Ravens, and now you're getting the Ravens +3 at home.
Yeah.
Or is the separation between these teams still too much to even justify buying the Ravens at home?
I think it depends on the Bills' injuries. The Bills and Ravens offenses right now are about similar. Take a quick check out our drive quality stuff. Yeah. 32 for the Bills are averaging 32 points, earned points, and the Ravens 31. But the defenses are on totally different levels. Right? Like the Bills' defense is one of the few that will consistently slow down a defense. And the Ravens are just like bleeding explosive plays right now. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. They're just bleeding them. Mac Jones was tearing them to shreds. But I don't think the Bills are gonna be healthy. And I'm not sure what to make of the defense. And if this game turns into a shootout, and it's like each offense playing their game, I think these are about equal. We'll also say, if you take the Ravens in this spot, I think you almost have to take the over also.
Right. I like the Ravens are playing more aggressive, certainly after that week 1 game versus the Jets.
Yeah.
But if the Bills just came off and they beat the Dolphins, and the Bills are 3-0, and the Bills are just as good as we thought, and the Ravens played a close game versus the Patriots, using our drive quality as a state of reality.
Yeah. Like the way this game plays out, it's really a matter of, can the Bills defense slow down the Ravens offense? That's the matchup. I see a lot of game scripts.
Even though you're speaking a lot of uncertainty and kind of playing both sides, in fact, as I hear you speak, I like the Bills more.
Okay.
I like the minus.
Yeah.
Chargers -5 at Texans. Obviously, it's very well documented. Chargers are just injured across the board. Just tons of negative sentiment, but still 5-point road favorites at a bottom 3 or bottom 4 team. Now, they're not terrible like they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But can they cover this 5? They beat the Chargers last year convincingly in Houston. Pulled away. I think they ended up winning that game by 20. Can you bet the Texans?
We need to pump the brakes. Bigly pump the brakes on the Chargers selling. Yes. Joey Bosa hurts. Yes. Rashawn Slater hurts. They still have an elite quarterback.
Who's banged up?
Okay, like they had a clunker of a game. Again, like this happens every year. Just like you can't get caught in the variance of an NFL season and just like single game results. This is all built in. Like the Chargers are gonna have games like this, and it was like, is Herbert playing? Is Herbert not playing? Like these are the distractions that cause these types of games, and it just like it spirals when your players get hurt. And it's like, oh, it's all coming down. And then they bounce back, and Herbert has a great game, and they win 31-17. Keenan Allen's likely going to be back this week, practice today. What we said about in our NFC West preview, Justin Herbert's still really good. Under pressure, not under pressure. The quality of your offensive line matters less when you have Justin Herbert. You can overcome it when you have a Justin Herbert, and like, I think it's important not to just pounce on the sell train.
My concern about the 5 would be that, to your point, one thing that you have to price in with the Chargers is they're just going to put in some really questionable performances from time to time. And one of the things we talked about why we liked Jags last week was this was a good 2-sided handicap in the sense of it wasn't just about the Jags +7. but it's about now you can't take really the Chargers -7 because even if they are the better team, and even if they are winning in relatively dominant fashion, are they going to still be able to close the game? Are they going to continue to be aggressive? I agree with you. The market has been very aggressive in selling the Chargers. And from a sentiment perspective, I think it's maybe overshooting. I feel like there's a lot of people like ripping up their AFC West and Super Bowl tickets.
Yeah.
And that's premature.
Yeah.
But I don't think the market sold off enough maybe in the betting market on a micro perspective. I wish this was less than 5.
I think this line should be 7.
Seahawks +4 at the Lions. I think this opened up closer to that touchdown.
Yeah,
+6.5.
Injuries.
And Lions injuries have certainly pushed this lower. This still seems like too high of a number for the Lions, given their current stage of maturation. Can the Lions cover a number like this? Have to win in convincing fashion. Can they prevent the backdoor type covers?
Yeah, it seems unwise until we see it. So I'm willing to accept, no, this could be a legitimately great offense. There are two main concerns here. The first is that the Seahawks are not the train wreck that I anticipated, I think. Like, they're going to show up in spots. And the second is like, the Lions have played so well, but their production has also really flowed through only a couple guys. Or like DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown have been absolutely integral pieces to the Lions offense. Like, both of those guys are out.
Another thing is, when the Seahawks are playing at home, they could potentially be a different team. And so far, that's the split that we've seen.
I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit beats them handily, but I'm also not willing to. There's too much uncertainty.
Jets at Steelers, currently +3. I think this was +4.5, 4. I already put in a couple bets for this week. I bet Jets 4.5.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson might play.
He's playing.
He is playing.
Yeah.
So that creates potential higher ceiling. I'm not as down on the Steelers, I feel, as the broader market is. I feel like they're not that bad. They just hang around, and they're not good enough to maybe close out games. But I definitely like the Jets at the 4.5, 4. Now it's down to 3.
I like the Jets here a lot. The power rankings have them as 32nd best. I don't think that's close to true. And I think there are certain times when you can take upside, like betting on a long-term thesis in one game. Here's the Jets take to me. I think their secondary has been tremendous. Like Arshan just did some cool stuff. Like their cornerback trio has been great. They're generating pressure off the D-line. We've talked over and over about the weapons being really good. We love the offense. Michael LaFleur's done a great job as the offensive coordinator. All of the right buttons are in place. If Zach Wilson can be anything, it's just marginally okay, the Jets will be good. And your room for error playing against Mitch Trubisky and the Steelers is so it's so high.
I think Zach Wilson can introduce a lot of those errors, especially in the first game, especially versus a Steelers team that has historically been very opportunistic.
But this is exactly the spot where I'm willing to buy the variance because the margin for error is so high.
Jaguars +6.5 versus the Eagles. These are two obviously red hot teams, not just on the field, but in the market. Everyone's buying every type of exposure you can on Jags and Eagles right now. But this is still a very high line. So this open 7, that was the one bet that I already put 3 units on Jags at the 7 as that came out. But I'm surprised that it's actually still hanging around at this 6.5. I thought that this would continue to drip lower over the course of the week. So still Wednesday night. Limits are going to go up across the board generally tomorrow. So maybe we'll see some of these lines start to tighten up a little bit. But I would expect this to continue to move lower, even despite all the love on the Eagles. This is a pretty hefty number.
Yeah, this is a tough one. First, everything we said about Jalen Hurts earlier, I think still applies.
Still true.
Yeah. Still true. I think 6.5 is
0 points in the second half versus Washington. Doug Peterson revenge game too. If that's the thing.
Why not? But to finish off the Hurts point, the 6.5 fundamental value aside, if the Eagles offense is firing on all cylinders and they're scoring 37 points, the 6 doesn't mean anything. And that's certainly the case of Jalen Hurts MVP. But I don't think that's the likely case. And I think the Jaguars are better than people think. We talked about this tier thing, and that's tier 3 to tier 2. but they're like, oh, the worst of the AFC South. I don't think people are ready to move them into tier 2, and I think they're probably there. Everything we said in the offseason about the environment being horrible last year, blah, blah, blah. Everyone said that, but no, you can sometimes project leaps from quarterbacks, especially someone like Trevor Lawrence, who was a generational prospect, right? Like, not the generational prospect that comes around every 2 years, but like the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. We all knew he was going number 1 overall from the first time he took a college snap at Clemson. Yes, he's going to get better. That's what's going to happen. And it shouldn't be too crazy to think, oh, maybe Trevor Lawrence can be a top 5 quarterback. That was always in the realm of possibilities.
One of the things that I talked about as well, and I think is playing out very nicely here, is a lot of these wins too. And now the Jags are scoring points, sure, but there's no like highlight reel performances thus far from the offense or even Trevor Lawrence. And this is really being driven by the defense. The defense has been playing fabulous.
Yeah, they're generating pressure. I saw a cool tweet, I don't remember who it was from. It's Ben Brown, I think. That like on non-blitzes, the Jaguars are generating the 5th most pressure, meaning excluding plays specifically designed to generate pressure. Like, they're winning 4-man rushes. That means a lot. You can cover up weaknesses in the secondary if you're generating pressure with just your 4 guys. And that I think is a great point that the market's not pricing it.
I think this is a good demonstration too of the market's actually hotter on the Eagles than they are on the Jaguars. Not fully ready to trust the Jaguars, or even a decent team yet. More so than just they're not bad. We know for sure they're not bad, but they're just average. And the Eagles are elite. Yeah, because the Jags crushing the Chargers got a little bit lost some of its luster because of all the things that are going on around the Chargers. One of the things that I talked about last week was like, if the Jaguars can somehow squeeze out this victory, that's when the Jags party is really going to get started. And in fact, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Because them destroying the Chargers on both sides of the ball has an asterisk next to it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, creates opportunity here.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, Commanders, Washington football team, the Redskins. Am I going to have to bleep that out? Plus 3.5 at Dallas. How bad is Washington? How bad is Carson Wentz? Like, sacked 5-6 times the first 20 minutes of the game?
Yep. I mean, we talk about this every week. It's just a Wentz venture.
But now you got Micah Parsons, this defensive line, and this Cowboys pressure.
This is exactly the spot where he hits Terry McLaurin for a 60-yard touchdown and Jahan Dotson for a 45-yard touchdown, and the Commanders win 24-20.
It's Washington plus 3.5, right? Still division game versus 2. I had the pressure that the Cowboys are going to get on Wentz, I feel like is the dominant narrative in this game. There is no positive sentiment on Washington. They put in 2 miserable unwatchable performances.
So I completely agree with that. I wish there was a way to counter that exact argument, but there isn't. Like, I'm not sure that we're necessarily capitalizing on it by betting the spread or the money line.
But that's the thing, is if you're trying to play this rhythmic performance of Wentz, maybe this isn't quite the right time yet. And I'm willing to also not try to catch a falling knife on this Washington offense, who in now back-to-back performances hasn't done anything. I want to see at least one more decent performance from Wentz to be able to say, all right, let's try to catch that rhythmic performance from him at another time, but not necessarily have to try to do it here. Browns at the Falcons, Browns -1. I was listening to Tajan Arjun's podcast. This is like one of their best bets of the week. And I think I really strongly agree with their handicap on this as well. You got the Falcons, miserable defense, certainly against the run. And the Browns are certainly one of the best running teams. This line opened, I think it was 3. I certainly saw it was 2.5. And this has been coming all the way down now to pick them. The betting market right now is saying they're really buying into this Falcons offense, is what this is saying. And I'm certainly willing to fade that. I do really like the Browns at 1. I already bet Browns.
I'm excited to listen to take the points tomorrow, and Arjun was pitching me on the Browns as well. But like you said, even if the Browns are propped up by the weak opponents, that isn't changing this week. I like the Falcons are a particularly strong team. And again, this is like our biggest point of disagreement as bettors. Is like, you're willing to make the bet specifically countering what the market says. And I'm a little less comfortable, but I think you're spot on here.
Plus, just from a manager selection perspective, okay, you're not even talking about anything relevant to the game. Okay, I'm just talking about, I'm listening to other sharp evaluators who make predictions looking at their broader betting performance. And one of the things that Tej and Arjun were lamenting on their pod is that they're, I think, 0-3 to start the season on their best bets. I'm ready to buy the dip. I know that they're sharp, they're smart, they know what they're doing, and they've gotten some bad luck. I'm ready to buy the dip. For that reason alone, plus there's the on-field broader fundamental handicap.
Look, if we're riding a Tej and Arjun tonight, I have to join ship. But I think on the field stuff also supports the Browns being able to run their offense and controlling this game.
All right, Cardinals plus 1.5 at Carolina. The market, I feel like, keeps wobbling back and forth on Arizona. Oh, they're good, or they're bad. Oh, I love Kyler Murray, or he sucks. It's either Kyler Murray's so good he can overcome everything bad on that team, or Cliff Kingsbury's such a bad coach that he mitigates all the positives. It's a constant back and forth swinging of this narrative. I think the market's still too high on the Panthers. I like Cardinals at plus 1.5. Is Baker Mayfield going to be able to take advantage of some of these secondary weaknesses?
That's the central question. Is the Cardinals defense just so bad that any quarterback can take advantage? Right, where it's like Baker Mayfield's going to have his best season game because he's playing the Cardinals. Which side is the quarter force here? Is it the Panthers offense being so bad, or is it the Cardinals offense being so bad that the Panthers offense will be able to have their best offensive game this season?
Arizona shut down Raiders in the second half of that game. And also, they didn't get their doors blown off by the Rams.
Our drive quality stuff.
The Rams-Cardinals final score was closer than our drive quality model suggested it was. But the market is also seeing that. Maybe it was just such an ugly performance. Again, no touchdowns, no sparkly plays from Kyler Murray. I just haven't seen anything to buy from the Panthers. McCaffrey is banged up. He didn't practice today.
This is one where the matchup trumps the fundamentals for me, because the matchup itself introduces a lot of uncertainty, which is like, I agree with you. Cardinals are a lot better of a team than the Panthers. But the way this game plays out gives me a little bit of pause.
Broncos plus 2.5 at Las Vegas. Raiders, this is not the market abandoning ship on the Raiders still. And our market consensus rankings also demonstrate that fact. Still, they've been downgraded, but marginally, but still a middle of the road team at 15. And if we think that this team should be ranked 25th or worse, maybe it's a time you could still potentially lean into the Broncos here.
I'm not sure what to make the Broncos defense. Like, was that a Jimmy G stinker? Like, they haven't played anyone. They didn't give up any points to the Texans. They gave up 17 points to the Seahawks. There's nothing to suggest they're going to be bad.
Broncos plus 2.5 reduced juice right now, so this might move to 3. It's even more, I think at 3, that might be the clincher.
Yeah, I'd take that for the Broncos. And just from the way this matchup plays, like, Broncos defense slows down Raiders offense. Raiders defense is a train wreck. If there's any spot for Wilson to take advantage, it's this one. And as Arjun was saying, their entire secondary is hurt. Right, Nate Hobbs was their only good corner, and he's down.
Yeah. And I've seen, again, it was just literally one drive.
There's also,
but versus the Niners, that could be a sneaky buy signal to say, because that was like a vintage Russell Wilson drive versus the Niners at the end of that game, moving around in the pocket, having the right pocket awareness, having the right touch on the ball, finding the receiver down the field, the types of things that he hasn't been doing so far this season. But I think there's also a lot of negative sentiment around the Broncos. The things that I was talking about off season, I feel like is starting to catch up now.
Yeah.
Just through the first 3 weeks of the season. And I don't think that our negative narrative on the Raiders, that hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah. I'm also even thinking towards the off season where we said about Broncos, which is it's gonna take time for Wilson to get going.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And the second is, I really think Jerry Jeudy is the key to this offense. Like, it's the secondary weapon that is so essential to the Broncos playing well. And he missed basically all of week 2 and played only half the snaps in week 3 coming back from injury. Like, he should be healthier. I think this is the spot where the Broncos offense comes alive.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of my favorite picks. Patriots, 9.5, plus 9.5 at Green Bay.
Brian
I think it
Hoyer's
opened 10.5. Brian Hoyer is probably going to be, I think he's quarterback. Mac Jones injury, going to be out for the next couple of weeks at minimum. I don't get this. Is there something else that I'm missing here? Because this seems way too high. The Packers offense has not looked good at all. Obviously played a great defense versus the Bucs, but they did look terrible versus the Vikings. Then had a decent bounce back versus the Bears, one of the worst teams in the league. And maybe people say, okay, the Packers are back. And I know you liked the Packers last week versus the Bucs. But again, they put in 2 good drives in those scripted plays, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was turned out to be enough. When's the last time the Patriots were plus double digits?
Yeah.
There's a team that like the Packers who I don't think is scary.
No.
Is Brian Hoyer that bad?
I think that's the question. With Matt
Mike
Patricia
Glennon bad?
This is with Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator and Joe Judge as a market. Going back to our power rankings, has the Bucs and Packers still has the same teams from last year. Yeah. Okay, so they're not playing well early in the season. Whatever. Like they're gonna come back, and I think Brady and Rodgers are declining, and the pieces around them are starting to fall apart. I'm with you. The Packers are not so scary, but I have no idea what the Patriots offense is going to be. And like the Packers offense doesn't need to be great.
But at almost 10 points, all right, it allows you a lot of uncertainty. You can budget for uncertainty with 10. Unless it's going to be 21-0, 21-3, the Patriots can't do anything.
That's a legitimate possibility for me. And I think the Packers defense is good.
If that's the case, I feel like the under is a slam dunk at 40. Because basically Brian Hoyer's going to be so bad that they don't score points.
Yeah, the under is attractive.
And we're talking about a big spread with a low total. I think I still like the Patriots, and maybe I get my face ripped off. But
yeah, I'm not trying to do on the Patriots.
How many points do you need to take the Patriots in this matchup? 14.5? Oh my God. You really hate the Patriots.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll take that into consideration, because when you have visceral reactions too, I never saw you push back so hard as when I bet the Saints live. and it turned out to be a terrible trade. And I should have listened more. All right, so Chiefs on the road, Bucs -1. This was that 2.5 range. So a lot of Bucs support coming in on the early part of this week. At 1, is this timed by the Chiefs? Or, as we talked about earlier, the Chiefs offense is not humming at minimum. And now they're about to play potentially the best defense in the NFL on the road. Can the Bucs score enough points to beat the Chiefs?
I love the Chiefs here.
Love the Chiefs.
Love the Chiefs. Wrote it up already.
If you wrote it up, then
that's my.
I don't like the Bucs enough to overcome a written piece.
Bucs are bad. They're living off like reputation from past years. Okay, what did we say in the offseason? We're potential trouble.
We got Bucs under.
Had Bucs under. Okay. What was potential signs of trouble? Offensive line, been terrible. Okay, like you want to take PFF grades, you want to take like perfectly 31st in pass perfect blocks, or 23rd in grade, whatever. Receivers, not getting open. 17th in separation for a catch. Okay. Product of injury, fine. Doesn't matter. Okay. Offensive coordinator. Okay. Bruce Arians gone. Okay. Bad. Tom Brady, another year in father time. Stuff adds up. If you just look at their like efficiency metrics, okay, explosive plays, 28th, early down success, 23rd, yards per play, 25th. They stink. They're just bad.
We've had 3 games in a row from the Bucs offense that it looks absolutely terrible. Potentially one of the worst in the NFL.
Yes, they've been bad.
But matched up with the best defense in the NFL as well.
Okay, but here's the take for the defense. First off, are we so sure the defense is great, or they've played a bunch of bad opponents? Like the Saints offense hasn't done anything. They had a couple good quarters in garbage time against the Falcons. Packers have done nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Cowboys were nothing special. Have been nothing special. Their offense is bad. It's legitimately bad. If the best case for the Bucs is their defense is going to be good enough to stop Patrick Mahomes, Mahomes is matchup independent. And this is like what I say in the article, that like get pressure on him, he's the best in the league against pressure. You have play good coverage, he's the best in the league against perfect cover. He's matchup independent in that sense. Yes, they certainly played their best game against the Cardinals, and they were terrible last week against the Colts. But even if you just look at all their efficiency metrics, they're still top 5 in everything. They're going to be a good offense, even if they're like who cares if the defense? We don't even know if the Bucs defense is so good. And like the market is pricing in the Bucs team of old. And in week 4, at least before everyone gets healthy, this team is bad, legitimately bad.
You said you're writing about the Chiefs.
It's written already.
That's the clincher. Because if we take all your written pieces, then we're like 3-0, and we have the Ravens last week. Okay, closer. Rams at the Niners. Rams plus 1.5. I really like the Niners at minus 1.5. I think this opened close to 3, then 2.5. And I'm like, yeah, if this gets under 2, I'm going to bet the Niners. And this is minus 1.5. Looks like it's trending to 1 right now. Niners minus 1.5 reduced juice. I haven't seen anything from the Rams that would make me upgrade them over the course of the first 3 weeks. No. If anything, they look even a little bit more pedestrian than even I thought. And we have Rams under already as is.
There are a couple things that give me a little bit of hesitation. Number one, division games between these two are always fluky. Number 2, I'm starting to get the sense that maybe part of Shanahan's offensive design was really also Mike McDaniel had a big role in that. The third is, where's Deebo Samuel been? Got nothing. They haven't shown any of the explosiveness. Yes, you can make all the excuses, but ultimately this team hasn't produced at all.
Okay, so that wraps up a long slate. One of the things that's going to be really interesting live trading those early games next week, since there's 9 games on the early slate. Thanks everyone for listening, and that wraps up our NFL Week 4 market outlook. That's closing down.